Recovery is coming, but how we get there is up to you and your vote.
I think the people of Texas are going to send me to D.C.
I'm proud of the record that I've been able to compile.
Tonight, listen to the candidates who want to represent you and your state in the nation's capital. Who will answer your questions? Who can help lead our recovery and give you hope? And who best represents the Lone Star State? This is the U.S. Senate debate in Texas. Good evening and welcome to the Bob Bullock Texas State History Museum in Austin. I'm Robert Hadlock, news anchor at KXAN TV here in Central Texas. I'll be your host this evening. You're watching us on one of 14 Nexstar Media Group stations and 3 of our partner television stations in Texas. We're broadcasting live from El Paso out to Texarkana and from Houston to Amarillo and beyond. You'll also be able to follow us along with our discussion on Twitter now at #TXSenateDebate. Tonight's debate is between the Democratic nominee MJ Hegar and the Republican incumbent Senator John Cornyn. We're joined tonight by a virtual audience. On one screen we have supporters of Senator Cornyn tuning in from home, and on the other side we have supporters of MJ Hegar. Thanks to all of you for joining us virtually tonight from across the state. Here in the Texas Spirit Theater, we have no live audience. We are following coronavirus social distancing guidelines set up by the CDC to keep us all safe here this evening. Each candidate and their campaign staff have answered health screening questions this evening, and a medical professional checked their temperatures as they entered the building. The candidates also sent us pictures of their negative COVID tests taken for this event in the last 48 hours. Joining me moderating tonight's debate is Gromer Jeffers, political writer with the Dallas Morning News. He's been covering Texas campaigns for the last 2 decades. Also here, Sally Hernandez. She's a native of El Paso. She's been a reporter and anchor here at KXAN TV in Austin for the last 2 decades. And Sally will begin by telling us about the rules for tonight's debate.
Thank you. Here is a quick rundown of the rules, candidates, so that you and our viewers at home know exactly what to expect tonight. Each candidate will get 60 seconds to answer the main questions, and then you'll have 30 seconds for a follow-up or a rebuttal. And we'll be reminding you throughout the night of this debate of those times. And the sound of a bell will ring when your time is up, just like that. Each candidate will get 1 minute for opening statements, and then you'll get 30 seconds for a closing statement. A coin flip earlier this week determined who goes first, and Ms. Hegar, you may begin with your opening statement, and once again, you have 60 seconds.
Thank you so much. Well, thank you for tuning in tonight. You know, I'm a working mom with a couple of kiddos at home, so I understand a lot of the challenges that y'all are facing, but you're not alone. Texas is at the forefront of a lot of the major crises that our country is facing. The economic crisis, the healthcare crisis, the immigration crisis were all made worse by the fumbled handling of this pandemic, but they were here before. And so tonight, when you're hearing about the various plans and solutions, ask yourself if you've heard these promises from Senator Cornyn before. And then ask yourself why he hasn't been able to deliver on them. In the 18 years he's had in the Senate, a third of that time, he's had the majority in the House and the Senate and the White House. Y'all, we need to start electing servant leaders who can set aside their self-interest, ask what's best for our country, not their careers, and attack the problems that we have head on. Look, if you ask me, we have got way too much D.C. in government and not nearly enough Texas.
Thank you, Ms. Hegar. Senator Cornyn, your opening statement, and once again, you have 60 seconds.
Well, thank you very much for having us here tonight, and thanks to everybody who is listening remotely. I love Texas. It's been my great honor and privilege to represent her, all 29 million of us, in the United States Senate. I don't believe we need to make Texas like Chuck Schumer's New York or Nancy Pelosi's California, which is the policies embraced by my opponent would do. We need to make the rest of the country more like Texas. Respect is on the ballot. Respect for Medicare recipients whose benefits are threatened, for the energy workers who would be put out of work by the policies embraced by my opponent, and respect for law enforcement. Sam Houston said that what is good for Texas is good for the country, and I believe that's still true today.
Senator Cornyn, thank you. Thank you both. That was your opening statement, and we've gotten lots of questions. All of these questions that we're getting to tonight, so you both know, and you at home know as well, have been based on emails that we've gotten from viewers over the last several weeks. Got a lot to tackle tonight. So, Gromer has the latest when it comes to our first question. Good morning, or good evening, Gromer.
Thank you, Sally, and it's good to see you both. We're going to start with you, Ms. Hegar.
Sure.
After COVID-19 hit, millions of Texans lost their jobs.
Yeah.
As of Thursday, at least 5.3 million Texans have filed for unemployment benefits since the start of the pandemic. Yet, Congress can't seem to make a deal on a coronavirus relief package. If you're elected, Ms. Hegar, will you promise to vote for direct stimulus checks for Texans? Why or why not?
You know, I used to wait tables. I was a bartender. I've been laid off from a job. I think it's so critical that we have people in a position to make these decisions who have actually faced these challenges. So, you know, I believe we can't attack the economic crisis until we get the public health crisis under control, because the public health crisis is leading. We can open businesses all we want, but there won't be customers there to patronize the businesses. So, you know, I believe we need more stimulus. I'm upset that the government and the Senate haven't acted in over 6 months. I was upset that John Cornyn said that he didn't feel a sense of urgency to get more relief out, said that multiple times. I'd like to see us get the pandemic under control by listening to public health experts and data, and then I'd like to see us get the economic crisis under control for regular working Americans and Texans, because we are the backbone of this economy, not the wealthy corporate special interests.
So if you were elected to the Senate today, you would not support direct stimulus checks to Texans?
I do support direct stimulus checks as a part of a bigger package. I'm very upset that the president decided to take his ball and go home and stop negotiations. Mitch McConnell just said we're not going to negotiate until after the election. I got to tell you, rent's due on the 1st. And a lot of people in D.C. don't understand how that feels. We do have a sense of urgency to get stimulus before this election because Texans are struggling now.
Okay, thank you. Senator Cornyn, would you promise to vote for direct stimulus checks to Texans? You have 60 seconds.
Gromer, I not only would, I have. I was part of a bipartisan coalition, really almost a unanimous vote of the United States Senate and the House to pass $3.8 trillion in spending, both to fight the pandemic, the public health challenge, and as well as deal with the economic consequences associated with it. My heart goes out to those people who, through no fault of their own, find themselves without a paycheck, locked down perhaps with somebody who is abusing them, anxious about where their next meal is going to come from. I've actually done something about it by supporting this bipartisan $3.8 trillion expenditure. But we need to do more, and I hope that the White House and Speaker Pelosi will continue to negotiate. But what I don't understand is the chief sponsor for her candidacy, Chuck Schumer, single-handedly blocked $500 trillion in additional spending that would have made sure that a vaccine would have been available at the end of the year.
I'm going to come back to the stimulus checks in a moment with you. That $3.8 trillion, that was the first relief package. But Ms. Hegar, let me ask you.
I need to address that because he used my name. So.
Okay, go ahead. Yes, 30 seconds.
We're going to hear a lot of this tonight, and it's so frustrating. It must be frustrating for you, John, to not be able to run against Chuck Schumer, but he's running against MJ Hegar. But you're going to hear a lot of Pelosi and Schumer and other names because he can't run against my vision for this state. Because the people who are funding my campaign and are supporting my campaign are the grassroots army across the state he has called a liberal mob that have come together and stood arm in arm and given an average of $23 to this campaign, and we've raised millions that way because Texans are done.
All right, just let me follow up. The negotiating process in Washington and Congress can be complicated. It can be tough. You have no legislative experience. How can Texans be sure that without legislative experience, you'll be able to keep your promises if elected?
Experience is really important, and I think that we need to elect people with the right type of experience. But I do have experience being in D.C., building broad bipartisan coalitions. When I was a private citizen taking time off my job, going to D.C. to fight the bureaucrats and make our military stronger, our Joint Chiefs unanimously stood with me in my fight to open jobs for women in the military. But I'm not surprised that John Cornyn doesn't know about my bipartisan experience because he was one of the people who wouldn't take a meeting with me when I was there.
All right, thank you, Ms. Senator Cornyn. Last month, you voted on a stimulus package that did not include a direct payment. What do you say to Texans who can't make ends meet? You have 30 seconds.
Well, as I said, Gromer, we've actually tried to do everything we can to throw a lifeline to those individuals. In the first 4 packages included a direct payment to individuals who, through no fault of their own, found themselves out of work. We enhanced the unemployment insurance benefit. And the most impactful thing we've done for the economy is the PPP program, the Paycheck Protection Program. But we do need to stop this virus, and the only way we're going to do that is to get a vaccine. That's why the people who recruited and are bankrolled MJ's campaign are the ones who are blocking it.
He just said they've done everything they can. So it's time for him to step aside and let those of us who have good ideas and have made life and death decisions before that have led to people getting rescued off the battlefield like I have, instead of the life and death decisions that he's caved under pressure under and have caused millions of people to die.
All right, Robert has the next question.
Thank you, Gromer. Senator, if the United States has a second COVID spike and scientists who advise Washington recommend another national shutdown, would you support those scientists' findings? And you have 60 seconds.
Well, Robert, I think we've learned a lot about this virus during this terrible time we've lived through. When the president ordered a shutdown in air transportation from China, there were those that called him racist and xenophobic, but that was probably one of the most important things that could happen at that time. You'll recall that Nancy Pelosi and Mayor de Blasio went to Chinatown in New York and in San Francisco and said, we're open for business, there's no problem. And then you saw the difference in the advice that was given by Dr. Fauci and others at the CDC on masks. Before April, they said masks don't do you any good. And then now we all dutifully wear masks, socially distance, wash our hands, and stay home when we're sick. So I don't believe that we need any lockdowns. It's done tremendous damage to individuals and to the economy. And we need this economy to be there so it can come back once we put the virus in the rearview mirror. And I think that, to me, is the most important thing, individual responsibility.
Ms. Hegar, if we see a second spike and scientists advise Washington to recommend another national shutdown, would you support those scientists' findings? And you have 60
listen
seconds.
carefully at home. That was a no. I was trained in crisis management in the military and in my 5 years working in healthcare, and I am really disturbed at a lack of listening to science, to public health experts, to objective metrics and data. In crisis management, you set yourself milestones and you say, when we're at this number, these actions kick in, and it's not up to opinion or what do the polls say or is it good for my reelection. So yes, I think we need to partner with public health experts, just like when we're talking about opening schools, we need to partner with teachers and parents. The wrong people are at the table right now. We need to bring the right people to the table, make decisions, and the best thing for our economy is to tackle this public health crisis the way that other countries have been more successful at doing.
On a related matter, Senator, would you support a national mandate on masks? And you have 30 seconds.
I would not, Robert, because I think the United States is a big, diverse place. Texas is a big, diverse place. Obviously, out in West Texas, people know how to socially distance. They do it every day because of the lack of population density. But we know that when we're unable to socially distance, that masks can play an important role. But I think, we don't need the government to fill the void that we should fill ourselves by acting responsibly at the local level to keep each other safe and to get this economy growing again.
And Ms. Hegar, would you support a national mask mandate? 30 seconds, please.
I agree that we need more local control of government, which is why I'm disturbed at the government overreach from Governor Abbott, who are trying to shut down local leaders that are trying to do things like social distancing and make decisions to keep their constituents and voters and citizens safe. I am for a national strategy. I do agree that different parts of Texas are different. I would be for a national strategy that takes science and objective metrics into consideration when deciding, if there is this type of a population with this level of infection, then we have different decisions based on, the different circumstances.
Thank you so much. Sally has the next question.
Thank you, Robert. Schools in Texas have some sort of in-classroom learning, of course, because of the pandemic. I want you to take a look and listen to this data from the Texas Education Agency. It shows at least 7,620 COVID-19 cases among students at Texas public schools. Ms. Hegar, this question will go to you first, and you'll have 60 seconds to answer it. Should it be mandatory for children to get a COVID-19 vaccine before they can go back to school?
Well, I don't think we have a vaccine available yet, and we need to get our kids and teachers back in the classroom as safely as possible. When I've been talking to teachers and parents, and I'm doing virtual kindergarten right now with my 6-year-old, I know that school is more than just a place for education. It's a place for community and nutrition and screening for abuse, and we have isolation issues. We really need to work with teachers and public health experts and parents to get our kids back into school. But in July, when we had over 1,700 positive cases of kids with COVID, John Cornyn said we're not even sure if kids can catch COVID. Y'all, we need leaders that are informed, that either have the right information and have competence to make these decisions, or when they have that right information, don't insist on spreading misinformation and talking points from their party leadership.
Ms. Hegar, if scientists said that there is a COVID-19 vaccine right now,
yes, I am for vaccinations.
You would allow your children?
There are multiple vaccinations that our children are required to take to keep each other safe. I'm actually not a huge fan of the government mandating things on your body, but especially when it comes to, we don't have the right to make other people sick and to put other people and their kids at risk. So yes, I support vaccinations.
Okay, Senator Cornyn, just to repeat the question for you and for those at home as well. You have 60 seconds for this question, by the way. Should it be mandatory for children to get a COVID-19 vaccine before going back to school?
Well, I don't believe a vaccine is available right now, and I do think it's important for our kids to go back to school, to safely return to school. But Ms. Hegar mentioned, made a false statement about my earlier remarks with regard to children getting. It's not clear what the role is if children get the virus, how and if they can spread it. We've learned a lot, as I've said, from the beginning of this virus, and we now know that kids can get it, and they can spread it to people who are vulnerable. That's why it's important to protect the most vulnerable people. But Mike Morath, the Commissioner of Education, told me that there is 2 million school children in Texas currently going to in-classroom instruction out of 5 million students. And I support kids going to school when they can safely do so in consultation with their parents, because one of the biggest problems is poor children who don't have access to broadband or the internet are falling farther and farther behind, and that's a human tragedy.
If there were a vaccine available today, Senator Cornyn, and it is approved, would you require a mandate for children to get it before they can go back to the classroom?
I think the people who should get the vaccine first are the people who are most likely to die if they get COVID-19, which means people over 80 and people with underlying chronic illnesses. 99% roughly of the people who get the virus are going to recover. Some of them will end up in the hospital, but children, by and large, tolerate the virus well and are not hospitalization is not part of the, does not result. So I think it would be important to start with the people who are at the greatest risk first.
Sally, I can't allow that misinformation to go out, because
okay, I'll give you
people
30.
make decisions based on the things that people that they respect say. This absolutely does impact children, and they don't tolerate it well. We don't even know what the long-term implications are of this disease, but in March of this year, months before the statements, I mean, he's accusing me of making false statements, we saw in New York, I think it was 65 kids had inflammatory organ symptoms. I don't remember what the technical term of it was, but as a concerned parent, I was damn sure paying attention, and I'm very concerned about the impact of this disease on our children.
Senator Cornyn, would you like to respond to that? I'll give you 30 seconds as well.
Well, of course we're all concerned, but we have to look at the priorities. I mean, that's the reason why I think local control is important when it comes to children going back to school. And because it has to be done when the parents and the teachers are comfortable with them safely reentering the school. But MJ mentioned local control. She said when Governor Abbott said that the Austin City Council shouldn't cut funding for the police, she said, well, what about local control? In other words, she tacitly agreed that defunding the police was okay.
I don't tacitly do anything.
She and I couldn't be more different in that regard.
I do not agree with that. I didn't tacitly do anything.
And I promise
knows me,
we'll get to that topic
I'm a
coming
very
up.
tacit person.
Okay. We're going to keep on talking about COVID-19. It's the same subject, but I'm going to ask this question in a different way. With a show of hands, will you get the COVID-19 vaccine when it becomes available? Raise your hand if yes.
I'll eventually get it, but not first in line.
Okay, well, let's start with you, Ms. Hegar. You raised your hand, both of you raised your hand. Tell me why you will take a COVID-19 vaccine when it becomes available.
Look, I think that there are valid reasons to be concerned at the politicization of science with this administration, but we have a responsibility to keep our fellow Americans safe, and I have faith in public health experts, in the CDC and the FDA. Even if there's problems at the top, there are true servant leaders that are putting science first, and I trust them if they're going to say that something is safe. And I think that we've got to get this pandemic under control if we're going to recover our economy.
Senator Cornyn, 30 seconds to explain why you would take it, but you won't be the first in line.
Well, we will never get this virus under control without a vaccine. We need the vaccine. That's why I was shocked and surprised, frankly, that Chuck Schumer would lead all the Democrats in the United States Senate to vote against a $500 billion relief package to help people with COVID, and to fund the Operation Warp Speed, which is designed to deliver 300 million doses of vaccine by the end of this year. That's the people who are supporting MJ, the people who recruited her and her donors, and the first vote she will cast will be for Chuck Schumer as the leader.
All right, let's move on to Gromer with the next question.
I think I should get an opportunity to respond.
Take 15
Hi,
seconds, please.
I'm MJ Hegar. I'm a Purple Heart combat veteran and a working mom of two, and I am your opponent. I'm the person you're running against. As inconvenient as that is for you, it's my ideas and my support in this state that you're going to have to face in this election.
Can I respond?
Go ahead.
Well,
I'll respond to my response.
I'm worried about the people who are bankrolling your campaign, the Hollywood celebrities.
Let's talk about that.
And the,
Can we talk about who's donating to our
people
campaigns?
like
Because
Chuck
that actually
Schumer, who
is
put
very
$6
important.
million into her primary race.
Okay.
Against Royce West.
Actually, the people who are donating to our campaigns are the reason of the lack of action.
All right, let's move on to the Supreme Court vacancy. I will ask both of you questions on the topic, but they will be different questions. The hearings to confirm Supreme Court nominee Amy Coney Barrett are scheduled to begin Monday. Senator Cornyn, you've defended the decision to approve her nomination before Election Day. But in 2016, when President Obama announced his own Supreme Court nominee, you had a different view. You said, the only way to empower the American people and ensure they have a voice in the voice is for the next president to make the nomination to fill this vacancy. Senator, some Texans would say, especially when you pair it with what you're saying today, some Texans would call that a flip-flop. Is it a flip-flop?
Absolutely not. If Hillary Clinton had won the election like everybody expected at the time, you wouldn't hear a peep out of people on this topic. But what really is at stake with Amy Coney Barrett, who's been attacked for her religious faith and suggested by members of the Judiciary Committee that she is somehow disqualified because she's a Christian and she can't keep her oath of office to decide cases irrespective of her personal beliefs. That's what I think the American people need to see. She's a supremely qualified candidate, and I'm happy to be part of that Judiciary Committee that's going to hear her testimony, but frankly, America will be able to hear her testimony and judge for themselves. The reason why the left and people like MJ are so upset on these Supreme Court appointments is because they view judges as legislators wearing black robes, except they don't run for election. And they basically make policy from the bench. That's what the left, that's what Democrats want. I want somebody to call balls and strikes.
Senator, let's be clear. If it's about power, it's about power. You did say one thing in 2016.
I disagree with you, Gromer.
Okay, all right. Ms. Hegar, after Republicans announced their intention to fill the Supreme Court seat, you sent out this statement. It said in part, it should be the President and the Senate that we elect who select a qualified individual to serve a lifetime appointment. So my question for you, Ms. Hegar, was it wrong for your party to try to push Merrick Garland's nomination before President Obama's term ended?
Well, let's be clear that Merrick Garland's nomination was 8.5 months before an election in an election year. And right now, we are in the middle of an election where people have already cast ballots, where, you know, where is this urgency to push through this nominee, which, by the way, they wouldn't have this kind of urgency if they thought they were going to hold on to the Senate and the White House. But this urgency, where is that urgency around getting us COVID relief or any of the other bills that are sitting in Mitch McConnell's legislative graveyard? Things like universal background checks and ending corruption and ending corporate PAC money, supporting candidates like John Cornyn. I believe we should be getting back to a time. Do y'all remember, y'all old enough to remember when judges used to have to say how nonpartisan and unbiased they were to be able to get confirmed? And now we're seeing something very different in these nominations that has me concerned as someone who took the oath to support and defend the Constitution. I think they have the right to vote on this nominee. There's a difference between having the right to do something and it being the right thing to do.
But yes or no, answer the question about Merrick Garland. Was it wrong for your party to try to push his nomination before the election?
I think nominating someone 8.5 months before an election, I wouldn't characterize that as pushing it. I think that they were right to put forward that nominee for confirmation because people weren't in the middle of casting their ballots.
So the only thing different now is the timing, or just
maybe
a
the
few
military
months?
leadership in me, that precedent matters. Now they're setting a new precedent now. Precedent matters.
All right.
But integrity matters, and going back on your word and not admitting that and taking responsibility and just saying, hey, we've got the power, we're trying to stack the court.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. Senator Cornyn, a follow-up question for you. Do you support term limits for Supreme Court justices? You have 30 seconds.
Well, Gromer, as you know, I was a judge for 13 years here in Texas, and we run for election. That's one way to do it. That's what happens at the states. At the federal level, it's a different model. The lifetime tenure is supposed to be removed from politics, not making policy decisions, which is part of the discussion we're having here today. So I think that's something we should talk about, because unfortunately, too many people now see judges as making policy from the bench. If you can't win the vote at the ballot box, if you can't win the vote in Congress, you go to the court, and the court will change the outcome.
So no yes, no no, just we should talk about it?
Well, I think it's a legitimate subject for discussion, but you'd have to amend the Constitution to do it.
Okay. Ms. Hegar, yesterday you spoke with the Dallas Morning News, how about that, and said you don't support packing the court at this point. If you were the deciding vote on this issue, and the deciding vote for your party on whether to pack the court, how would you vote?
I think it would depend on the way the arguments were presented to me. Right now, the only arguments I'm hearing are how it would benefit one party over another. And we have enough legislators that make decisions based on how it impacts their party. So as a combat vet who shed blood for our Constitution, I'm going to be asking what's best for our country. And if people make an argument to me that it is in the best interest of our country, that's one thing. Right now, though, I think that we do need term limits for judges, and that would solve a lot of these problems.
Robert?
We have a couple of questions tailored to each candidate here this evening, and you'll have 60 seconds to answer, and a possibility of a 30-second follow-up question for you. Just remember, candidates, there's no rebuttal here. This is strictly a question and a follow-up for one candidate. Gromer has the first one.
All right, Ms. Hegar, you had a close race in the runoff against State Senator Royce West of Dallas. Of nearly 1 million votes cast, you won by about 30,000. I'm sure you remember that close race. Senator West has built a coalition of minority supporters, ones who certainly could help you in your bid for U.S. Senate. But on Wednesday, I talked to Royce West, and this is what he told me. He said, MJ Hegar has my cell phone number. She has not called me for my support. Have you reached out to Senator West since Wednesday, and why not?
Senator West and I have had so many conversations backstage at events like this, talking about why it was so important to replace John Cornyn. A lot of people express frustration that I don't engage in politics as usual. Personal endorsements tend to come with quid pro quo that I believe are a big part of what's broken in politics. I will come humbly and ask for the support of the Texas voters, of the organizations that have endorsed me, but you can call multiple people, including the people who have personally endorsed me, and ask them if I asked for their endorsement. I believe that is a big part of what's broken in politics. Personal endorsements tend to be based on things that are not necessarily values-based or this is the best person for the job. I believe Senator West is supporting me because I know that we're on the same page and we share so many of the same values. And I have really been blown away and inspired by the support of the grassroots momentum across the state, including in Black and brown communities across the state who know that they are not being served by their current leadership.
So in 30 seconds, can you tell me exactly what you're doing to get votes in communities of color, specifically the African-American community?
Absolutely. We're talking about voters who have been taken for granted and sold out and had broken promises so many times. So you can't go into communities and say, I'm just assuming you're going to support me, or here are some promises. You have to go and talk to people and earn their vote and work with them and not just talk to them, but hear from them. And I've partnered with these communities on policy-driven solutions to the challenges that they're facing, and I'm really excited about the plans that we have.
Senator Cornyn, you're serving your third term in the U.S. Senate. You have been an attorney, Texas Attorney General, and as you mentioned, you've been a Texas Supreme Court Justice. But look, a Dallas Morning News UT Tyler poll shows nearly a quarter of Texans don't know who you are. Senator, why don't Texans know who you are?
Well, Gromer, we have 25 more days to make that case. And the truth is you run for office every 6 years for the Senate, and a lot happens in the interim. Last time I was on the ballot, there were 4.7 million votes for both candidates. We had 8.3 in 2018. We're expecting 11 million votes now. People have been voting with their feet and coming to Texas for jobs, for opportunities, and to pursue their dreams. But I don't worry about personal popularity. I worry about solving problems. I think that's my forte. One of the things that outside groups have recognized me for is being one of the most effective senators in the body at this time, because I work across the aisle on things like police reform, things like trying to recognize Juneteenth as a national holiday. But there is a reason why Royce West doesn't call up MJ Hegar, because of the way she treated him during the primary. She basically suggested that he, a state senator, an African-American, and a successful lawyer, the only way he could attain that is to be corrupt. That's the way she treats people.
So, okay, Senator, Ms. Hagar, I have to let me. 30 seconds to respond to that, please.
I completely disagree. I'm not sure what to say, but I got to tell you that I am so proud of the fact that we had 1 million people vote in a primary runoff, which is such a small electorate. I have a lot of respect for Senator West, and I think it says something that John Cornyn, for the first time in his nearly 4 decades as a statewide elected official, is meddling in a primary of his opponent. He's clearly worried, and he has reason to be, but you can't select the person you get to run against.
Thank you. Senator Cornyn, in 30 seconds, name one thing that you have written, supported, or backed that has positively impacted the lives of Texans, average Texans, everyday Texans. 30 seconds, please.
Gromer, after the shooting at Sutherland Springs, I attended a church service with Pastor Pomeroy and his wife, who lost their daughter in that terrible shooting. And it occurred because somebody who never should have gotten their hands on a firearm, a convicted felon, was able to bypass the background check system because the Air Force had not uploaded those names. I introduced the Fix NICS bill 4 days later, passed with huge bipartisan majorities, and the Attorney General has now made the point, in just 6 months, 6 million more people's names are on the background check system to keep hands out of dangerous criminals.
Thank you. Senator Sally has the next question.
I do. Gromer, thank you. Those are the only individual questions that we have for both of you tonight, by the way. We're going to go back to our next round of questions, which means the main answer, you have 60 seconds, and then a 30-second rebuttal or follow-up. Earlier this month, Jonathan Price, an unarmed black man, was shot and killed by a police officer in Wolf City. That officer is now charged with murder. Senator Cornyn, this is an example of what the Black Lives Matter movement is trying to bring attention to. Do you agree with their message? Or do you think this is an unfortunate, isolated incident? And you have 60 seconds.
Well, I believe that all African-American lives matter. And when a police officer steps across the line, like in the George Floyd murder, that they need to be investigated and prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. But I support law enforcement because they are who keep our communities safe. And unlike my opponent, who's actually endorsed this Campaign Zero, you can check their website, go on the web, Campaign Zero. They not only want to defund police, they want to abolish the police, and they want to legalize things like prostitution. To me, those are not Texas values. We need to support our men and women in blue because they are the thin blue line between us and danger. And so I think it's really disappointing to hear people like MJ say that they don't respect the police, they don't want to fund the police, they want to abolish the police. It's just mind-boggling to me.
Ms. Hegar, do you agree with the Black Lives Matter's message in response to Jonathan Price's killing, or do you think that this is an example of an isolated, unfortunate incident?
We have a problem of systemic racism in this country, a problem that on the Senate floor John Cornyn denied existed. If we're going to come together and acknowledge this problem, first of all, we need leaders who can cite the problem if we're going to fix it. I do agree. I believe that Black Lives Matter, and I believe we need policing reform. Now, I have been a first responder, and I have had to pull the trigger in the line of duty. So I take serious offense to anyone who says I don't support law enforcement. I believe we need to support transparency and accountability, reform-minded leaders, and the police unions that are calling for reform as well. Now, for Campaign Zero, I have not seen that as part of their platform, and maybe their platform has changed. But if you go back and look at what I've said that I support, I said I supported things like the things set forward in Campaign Zero when they were talking about community policing and community oversight and body cameras and police officers representative of the communities that they're policing. So he can't win against my actual positions. He has to misattribute them to me.
Senator Cornyn, a follow-up to that is, what have you done? Have you met with any leaders of the Black Lives Matter movement? And you have 30 seconds for this follow-up question.
Well, I met with Mayor Sylvester Turner in Houston and Mayor Johnson in Dallas, who both convened meetings of community leaders, including of the communities of color, to try to figure out what needed to be done. That's why I introduced, along with my colleague Tim Scott, the Justice Act that would do police reform, ban chokeholds, provide additional training to law enforcement officials for de-escalation of conflict, and encourage diversity. But I am not in the same camp as Ms. Hegar, who believes that we should tie the police's hands behind their back.
I'm going to give you 15 seconds to answer if you have met with leaders of the Black Lives Matter movement.
I've met with black leaders, and but not per se that I know of. Frankly, I don't know necessarily who is and who is not a member. But I remember an African-American pastor in Houston who told me, "Senator, I respect the police, but my son doesn't trust the police." That's the problem we need to address.
Ms. Hegar, have you met with any leaders of the Black Lives Matter movement?
Again, so I have to show some empathy here and say that it's not, people don't, I think they don't introduce themselves as I'm a leader in the Black Lives Movement. I think that we need to look at black community leaders, black activists in the community. I've held multiple town halls on racial justice and policing brutality, and I just need to back up a step because he keeps lying about me, and he just, I'm used to you not hearing me, because when I came to D.C. seeking your help, you wouldn't take a meeting with me. But let me be very clear. There is always going to need to be someone on the other end of the line when we're in distress. I don't support defunding the police.
Okay.
I'm not sure how many times I need to say that.
I'll give you 30 seconds for rebuttal to that, Senator Cornyn.
Well, it's not just the police. It's Border Patrol. MJ has said that the Border Patrol that's doing their job enforcing laws Congress passes, they are the moral equivalent of the communist Chinese who are oppressing the Uyghur minority. She made that statement. You can look it up for yourself. So she doesn't respect border security officials, law enforcement. She doesn't respect our police. That's wrong.
Okay, we got to move on. I know, Ms. Hegar,
misinformation is why our country is so divided.
Okay, we have to move on to our next question. You both agree to the rules of this debate, and if you do agree to those rules, we got to move on. Gromer?
Thanks, Sally. Ms. Hegar, in the state of Texas, some government employees, including police officers, are being protected from being sued under the qualified immunity law. Do you support this law, or should it be changed? You have 60 seconds.
I think that anyone who familiarizes themselves with this law and doesn't just listen to misinformation and propaganda would support reforming qualified immunity. Basically, what it says is if there is a precedent, if there's not a precedent for the exact crime, then police can't be charged with it. So was an example of a police officer who, on executing a warrant, stole $214,000 or something like that worth of property. And because there wasn't an exact example of that, he couldn't be held accountable. Y'all, we have to stop the jargon and the loopholes and the smoke and mirrors and the double talk and really get to the root cause of problems. We need to work with leaders in the Black community and police leaders who want reform and accountability and transparency, and reforming qualified immunity, which was absent from his act, is a critical piece of this if we're going to hold bad actors accountable.
Senator Cornyn, do you support the qualified immunity law, or should it be changed? You have 60 seconds.
We tried to have a discussion about qualified immunity and other police reforms, but it was blocked by our colleagues across the aisle, the Democrats, who didn't even want us to get on the bill to begin that process. Kamala Harris, Senator Harris, had introduced a bill that made lynching a crime for the federal crime. She voted against proceeding to the bill. Our Democratic colleagues, sometimes I fear, they don't want to solve the problem. They just want the issue for the next election. I think that's a shame. That's a cynical way to approach these very serious issues. But we ask law enforcement to do a lot, more, just kind of like we ask teachers to do a lot, more than just teach our kids. And I think they need to be held accountable when they cross the line. But I think some measure of qualified immunity, where you think you're doing the right thing in good faith, is appropriate.
Thank you. Ms. Hegar,
Yes.
2020 has been highlighted by people coming together and calling for equality. These messages include ending what they call systemic racism. What does systemic racism mean to you? You have 30 seconds.
So there are examples of systemic racism throughout. Healthcare disparities. In the PPP loans, 95% of minority-owned businesses didn't receive the help that they needed. It's not because there is one racist person twisting their mustache. It is a system that is built against them, that they don't have the networks and the relationships built with accountants and attorneys and access to business capital. It's a complex issue. There is systemic racism in this country. The policing reforms that we need are a symptom of a deeper problem that we have to look at.
Ms. Hegar, can you take 15 seconds and tell me, have you looked inward and thought about maybe your own biases?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I've been through extensive implicit bias training, and everyone has implicit bias. When John Cornyn said for systemic racism to exist, every cop had to be a racist, I don't know that he's ever been through that type of eye-opening training. So I believe it's pervasive throughout our entire country.
Thank you. Senator Cornyn, what does systemic racism mean to you? You have 30 seconds.
Well, I've been trying to ask that same question. People, you ask them, what does that mean? And they have different definitions. They say, well, it's structural. I said, well, I believe in personal responsibility, and I believe that I try to treat every human being with the dignity and respect that they deserve. Look, slavery was one of this country's original sins. We paid a terrible price over many years. Civil war, civil rights movement, and people like George Floyd losing their life unjustifiably. We've got work to do, but we can't do it when people won't talk to each other.
Now, Senator, I asked Ms. Hegar this question. I'll ask you. Have you looked inward and identified maybe some biases that you have? Have you thought about that?
I try to do that all the time. I don't claim to be perfect, but I don't believe I'm a racist. I don't believe Ms. Hegar is a racist. And to me, when they suggest that somehow this is not a matter of individual responsibility, but it somehow is systemic, that just doesn't ring true to me.
Robert has the next question.
Senator Fort Hood, that huge base just north of us here in Austin, here in Central Texas, it's named for this man. He's Confederate General John Bell Hood, and the call's likely to change the name of Fort Hood. Do you support the idea of changing the name of this U.S. military post? Senator, you have 60 seconds.
Well, Robert, as you probably know, this is a subject of the defense authorization bill that's currently in the United States Senate. And I believe it was Senator Warren who suggested a commission study this matter and make recommendations to to Congress. I support that process. Strangely enough, that's one of the few things I agree with Elizabeth Warren on, even though she's endorsed my opponent, Ms. Hegar, because Elizabeth Warren is sort of the poster person for the Green New Deal, Medicare for all, the ideological wish list on the left. And presumably she sees in M.J. Hegar a loyal ally in coming to the Senate. So I support the commission process, but I disagree with Elizabeth Warren and M.J. Hegar on the direction they want to take the country. We will not even recognize our country if they were to prevail.
Ms. Hegar, would you change the name of Fort Hood?
I would. I think we can't deny our history, but we can choose who we select to celebrate it, and we cannot talk about Fort Hood without talking about the Military Justice Improvement Act and the soldiers that have been victimized at Fort Hood recently. I stand with Kirsten Gillibrand and her Military Justice Improvement Act back before I was ever considering running for office, because I am a military sexual assault survivor. I'm familiar with the culture. And let's acknowledge 99% of the men and women in uniform are patriots who do not contribute to this culture. But we do have to do something for the people who, like myself, have been survivors of this type of thing. So, you know, John Cornyn won't vote for the Military Justice Improvement Act. And if he would have listened to me and my story of how my chain of command let me down when the perpetrator in my situation actually confessed, then I think maybe he would have thought different. But he doesn't listen to other people who don't agree with him.
Sally has our next question.
Thank you. According to JMC Analytics and Polling, there have been more than 73 million mail-in ballot requests across this country. The president himself has raised the issue that the security of those ballots may be in question. Ms. Hegar, you have 60 seconds for this first question. Do you believe the results on election night could be compromised?
I have every faith in our democracy and in our electoral process. And I also think that being one of only 6 states that has not relaxed restrictions on vote by mail citing election security concerns, that is voter suppression just clear as day. I was raised to believe that if any state could do something, Texas could do it better. So even before COVID, 34 states have no excuse to vote by mail. If they can figure it out, why can't we? And frankly, if the people who would suppress our votes and try to make us choose between risking our health and exercise our constitutional duty to vote were so concerned about election security, maybe the election security bill put forward by a Republican senator wouldn't be lost in Mitch McConnell's legislative graveyard right now.
Would you accept the election results?
Absolutely. Yes, I will accept the election results, and I fear the impact of the rhetoric of any leader who doesn't state that clearly. I have been in countries and served in countries where they have not had election results you can trust. I've medevaced people who were missing thumbs because their blue thumb showed that they had voted. We can't take this kind of thing for granted, and we can't allow rhetoric that spreads dissent.
Okay, Senator Cornyn, again, do you believe the results on election night could be compromised? And I'll give you 60 seconds to answer, sir.
I'm not as worried about they could be compromised as that we won't know who the winner is. I remember Bush versus Gore and the litigation that ensued, and I think that's a problem that we ought to try to avoid. But I support every qualified voter being able to vote. And Texas, as you know, has one of the most generous early voting systems, either by mail if you're over 65 or in person, just like going to the grocery store, basically, or on election day. But if MJ is really worried about voter suppression and voter choices, why did she sue to remove the Green Party from the ballot? To me, that just runs counter to every argument she's made about wanting to respect the choices of individual voters. I'd like to hear why she sued to take the Green Party off the ballot.
Sure. That's because I believe in following the rules. And I know that you've demonstrated you don't think that the rules apply to you for things like, I don't know, the Austin American-Statesman, Ed Board, for example. You're the only candidate refusing to allow a videotape of your answers. I think it's because we know you're afraid of your own record and answers. And I would be too if I had voted the way you had. But I believe in following the rules. And you know, we are a nation of rules. I think those rules apply to me. I apply them to members of my own party. I apply them to members that are fighting, you know, in the Green Party for action on climate change, and I apply them universally.
Okay, we're going to move on to the next subject with Gromer.
Thank you, Sally. Let's talk about an issue happening unfolding along our southern border. Nexstar's website, borderreport.com, has been reporting on the approximately 700 asylum seekers at the Matamoros tent encampment. Their asylum claims are stalled because of what is called the Remain in Mexico policy implemented under the Trump administration. Senator Cornyn, do you support the policy to remain in Mexico until asylum cases are heard? You have 60 seconds.
Gromer, the COVID-19 has thrown everything on its ear, and I know that Mexico is struggling as we are struggling, but perhaps it's even worse there with dealing with COVID-19. I believe that the keeping people out of the country during this crisis is a public health measure that we should support. But it's important to know that, other things come across the border other than asylum seekers: drugs, human trafficking, even Chinese fentanyl. And MJ has demonstrated her lack of regard for the job that we've asked the Border Patrol to do there. It's a tough job. But when you basically call them the equivalent of a human rights abuser of the Muslim minority in China, to me that's just a sign of disrespect for the job, for people for whom we should offer respect, because they're doing a tough job that we've asked them to do.
So just to be clear, do you support the Remain in Mexico policy?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Hegar, do you support the Remain in Mexico policy? You have 60 seconds.
Let me help you out, because you were looking for examples of racism. It's racist to keep referring to the Chinese over and over again and stoking anti-Chinese sentiment among many Chinese Americans that are living here that are facing that type of anti-immigrant sentiment. He also said he supported it as a public health measure, but he supported it before COVID-19. Look, y'all, there's a reason that when Mitch McConnell asked John McCain to commission a group of senators to work on immigration reform, he said no to allowing John Cornyn to be a part of it. He has consistently voted against broad, bipartisan immigration reform. We need to reform immigration. I do not support Remain in Mexico. I think we need to be treating asylum seekers from our southern border the same way we treat them from every other place around the world, not asking what the color of their skin is, their religion, or whether or not they have access to health care. Our immigration system is a threat to our national security because it is not embracing the values of our country that make us the leaders of the free world. I worked for 3 years on the counter-drug task force, and I know how drugs are coming into our country, and a wall is not going to stop it. It's coming through ports of entry, over air, over water, and it's offensive that he would think I would disrespect the people I worked with.
Thank you, Ms. Hegar. Robert has the next question.
Ms. Hegar, do you believe that humans are the primary driver behind climate change? You have 30 seconds.
I do, and I believe climate change is the greatest existential threat to our species and to my children and grandchildren, but it's so much more than that. I stand with the Pentagon that it is a grave national security threat. I believe it is a huge economic threat, especially to Texas. We lead in the energy industry, and I would like to see us continue leading in the energy industry. For me right now, this is about jobs. We've got to protect energy industry jobs. Those jobs we are bleeding energy industry jobs right now.
Senator, do you believe humans are the primary driver behind climate change? 30 seconds.
I can't quantify it, Robert, but I do agree that humans do affect the climate. But if MJ is worried about jobs, then she would not be advocating a carbon tax that will destroy the jobs of hundreds of thousands of workers out in West Texas and around the nation. It will raise prices for people on fixed income, seniors and others, and it will destroy what is really one of our crown jewels here in Texas, which is our ability to export energy around the world.
Again, I have not advocated for a carbon tax. I said 11 countries have them.
We got to get to another question. Running out of time. Do you support a ban on fracking?
I do not support a ban on fracking. I do support investment in clean, renewable energy that gets us to a place where we don't need fracking. George Mitchell, the father of fracking, before he died, said that he thought we could do it cleaner and better without hurting our water and our land the way it's happening right now. So we need to stop the way it's happening right now and make sure it is happening in line with the father of fracking's vision for doing it in a way that doesn't hurt the water and the land while we transition to clean, renewable energy.
Senator, what about a ban on fracking? 30 seconds.
Well, everybody who's supporting MJ believes in a ban on fracking. I don't believe in a ban on fracking because it would destroy energy jobs in in Texas and around the country.
Everybody?
And I think make us dependent on imported energy from the Middle East, something we have been able to avoid. But everybody that MJ is receiving money from, whether it's the celebrities out in Hollywood or the elites on the East Coast, they believe in eliminating fossil fuels, including Joe Biden is on tape. Kamala Harris, the same.
Thank you. Sally.
Senator Cornyn, you have 30 seconds to answer this next question. Do you support decriminalizing marijuana?
I think before we answer that question, we need to have some very comprehensive research done on the effect of marijuana, THC, the active ingredient, on the developing brains of children. We know that vaping among kids and using things like THC concentrates can have a dramatic impact on their mental health and on their physical health as well. So I think before we make those decisions, we need to know what the facts are.
But as the research stands right now, and if you were the deciding vote, would you decriminalize marijuana?
I would not do it without the research that I just described.
Okay, Ms. Hegar, would you support decriminalizing marijuana?
Yes. For multiple reasons. I have a lot of experience with the effects, the medicinal effects, a lot of military veterans that have PTSD that can ease those symptoms through that. I don't support giving it to children. I think we should regulate it like tobacco, and we should benefit from the taxes on it as well. But I do think we should decriminalize it because it has also led to a disproportionate impact to communities of color of the incarceration epidemic in this country. The private prisons and detention centers that are donating to his campaign want it to stay that way, though.
Okay, I got to turn it over to Robert.
We are near the end. Senator, we have 30 seconds for you to give a closing statement.
Well, thank you very much, Robert, and thanks to everybody listening. And I appreciate MJ being a part of this process. I think this election presents a clear choice between the people who've recruited and supporting MJ's campaign, which want to make Texas more like California and New York. I want to make the rest of the country more like Texas. I have respect for Medicare recipients who would be damaged by Medicare for All, or the public option, as she calls it, our energy workers and our law enforcement officials. So I appreciate the chance to be here tonight to demonstrate those differences and would appreciate your vote.
Ms. Hegar, 30 seconds, please.
Thank you. We are facing serious challenges tonight, and we need to elect someone with the right experience. Not experience of 18 years of selling us out and not being able to come up with solutions, but people with experience like I have of actually facing the challenges of regular Americans like you and of making life and death decisions under pressure in a way that had a good outcome. Y'all, stand with me, and together we'll go to D.C. and we'll show these soft politicians how we do things in Texas.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for watching. This has been the Senate debate for Texas. Good night from Austin.